Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Switch on my audio right.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, we welcome you all for the second session of Gita Wisdom. So I hope we are ready now. Prabhuji, we can start.
Hare Krishna. I'm audible?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining us again for the second session on the topic 1 of Gita Wisdom program, titled as Does God Exist? We'll begin our session. We'll offer a prayer and then start with the discussion. All of you, please close your eyes, fold your hands. If you know the prayer, you can recite along with me. If you don't know the prayer, then whatever you hear, you can try to recite or else take a deep breath. Om Ajnanatirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hare Krishna. So welcome once again for this Gita Wisdom series. And we are on the second topic, as I said, the second session of the first topic. Before we get into today's discussion, a brief recap. Yesterday we discussed 4 subject matters. The very first thing that we discussed yesterday was, why do people believe in God? There are 4 things that we discussed, and the acronym for that was DUST, D-U-S-T. The 4 reasons why people believe in God. Although they don't study any scriptures, they don't have any formal education in Vedic text or any religious books. So why? What are the reasons for people having faith? Second, is there any scientific evidence for the existence of the Supreme Lord? Was the second subject matter. And we discussed 4 points also in that. Third, is everything happening by chance? This whole world, our life, the activities and the situations that happens around us, is it all by chance, or is it governed by some higher powers? And the fourth, interesting subject matter, the challenges. By this part of the discussion, we have come to a logical conclusion that yes, the Supreme Lord exists. Now the question arises, are there any challenges? Yes, there are challenges. 2 challenges that we discussed, where people would ask you, can you show me God? And second, who is the creator of the Supreme Lord? So we had discussed these 2 challenges also yesterday. And now we'll begin our session ahead of that discussion. wherein we are in the part 2 of this topic titled as Does God Exist? So we have this much understanding so far. We have got a proper answer also for those two challenges. Now the question arises, how do I gain knowledge about the Supreme Lord? The question matter is of knowledge. If I have a proper knowledge, then I would know the Lord exists and I can see Lord everywhere. Just like the example of Prabhupada walking on a beach and a disciple said, Prabhupada, look, what a beautiful sunrise. And Prabhupada said, see, if the painting is so beautiful, how beautiful must be the painter? So how do we come to this understanding and realization where we see everything in connection with the Supreme Lord? So that's a key subject matter of today's discussion. How to gain perfect knowledge about God. For instance, imagine, suppose in front of you right now, let's say you walk out of the balcony, you walk out of the room, you come to a balcony, and right opposite to your house or apartment, there is an old building. Let's assume it's a 50-year-old building. If it is a 50-year-old building, definitely there would be some documents and all that you can find out from the Nagar Palika or the local government housing department office. You can find out about who is the owner of that 50-year-old building. Something which is 150-year-old, well, that's not that easy, but still you can find out through some means of, if there are some descendants of that family or people of that time, the descendants of that time are still living around. What if something is 2,500 years old, constructed 2,500 years old? How would you find out? Not an easy task. What about something constructed or built 5,000 years ago? Becomes very, very difficult for it. Now think about this whole creation, which has been built or created millions of years ago, yes? How can you and I, by any research, by any means of our own efforts, find out the creation? It is impossible. It is because it existed in the time zone when we were just not there. None of the things that we depend on today existed. How can we ever find out? So that's the question. How to gain perfect knowledge about the Supreme Lord. So how to gain a knowledge? That is what we'll begin our discussion with. There are 3 ways of acquiring knowledge, because we are focusing on the subject matter of how to gain how to gain perfect knowledge about the Supreme Lord. Before we can gain knowledge of the Supreme Lord, let's talk about how to gain knowledge about this creation, because Lord must have existed before the creation. When we cannot find out about the cause of creation, the origin of creation, what to speak about trying to find out the origin or the cause of the Lord by our own endeavors? That's not possible. So there are 3 ways of acquiring knowledge. First is called Pratyaksha Praman. Second is called Anuman Praman. And third is called Shabda Praman. Now, what is Pratyaksha? Aksha means sight or vision. Pratyaksha means direct sense perception, where people say is seeing is believing. If you show me, I'll believe. If not, then I would not believe. Where a person totally depends on his idea of sense perception. Now, the question arises, are our sense perceptions always correct? What do you think? Yes or no? Is the chat enabled? Are we perfect in our sense perception? So I'll request the host, if the chat is not yet, chat is there. So all of you would agree, no, oftentimes we get bewildered. You know the example of a mirage, the shadow, when you're driving in a summer heat in the North India, at least I've seen on a highway, it would feel like as if a distance ahead there's a water, there's a pond of water or something like that, but it's nothing but the reflection of the sunlight, which creates an illusion as if there is a water. So yes, we talk about show me God, I'll believe, but on the other hand, our sense perception not perfect. To sum up this discussion, why sense perception is not perfect? Because all the living entities have 4 defects. Doesn't matter you're Hindu, Christian, Muslim, Indian, Pakistani, American. Everyone has it, all the living entities. The first defect, tendency to commit mistakes. Who doesn't commit mistakes? Everyone commits mistake. Long ago, I had received a text message. It's a joke, but an interesting joke. And therein, a to-be bride sends a message to her groom, to be husband, and she writes a message to her, writes a message to him saying that, sorry, we cannot get married. And when the boy received the message, he was about to get a heart attack. Oh, what happened? I was supposed to get married to you. And she writes, oh, sorry, we cannot get married because my marriage is fixed with someone else. So this person was almost about to get a heart attack. After 3 minutes, this girl sends another message to this man to whom she's about to get married. And she says, sorry, by mistake, I sent it to you. It was a case of a double heart attack now. I mean, that's a joke, but the fact is, yes, mistakes are committed by everyone. Who doesn't commit mistake? You know, in your cricket stadium, you have an umpire, you have, two referees, then you have a third referee, then you have the drone flying in the sky. Despite all this, still there are mistakes that happens. We all have seen that. The teachers makes a mistake while evaluating a paper. The student makes a mistake while writing a paper. The judge makes a mistake in passing a decision and whatnot. Second, to be illusioned. We get bewildered. We'll elaborate about it more in a short while. Third, imperfect senses. And fourth, cheating propensities. So let's talk about the first point, commit mistakes. I elaborated already. The point is the tendency to commit mistake, or I would say the ability to commit mistake, is actually there in all of us, including the scientists. The situation that we all are in, because of which we are right now online, the credit goes to the COVID virus. No, I would not say the credit goes to COVID virus. The credit goes to the makers of the COVID virus. They pushed it into the situation where we are coming online. So some mishap in the lab, accidental, intentional, God only knows, have led to all of us this situation. So who doesn't commit mistake? Like this was a point that we already elaborated. Like just the value of Hubble constant, it has changed so many times. Now the scientific community is debating, should it be called as a Hubble variable or a constant? I mean, if it's a constant, it should not change, but it's changing so often, should be called as a variable. Tendency to be illusioned. A nice example, when you taste an orange after eating sugar, the orange tastes sour. Similarly, when you taste orange after tasting lemon, the orange tastes sweet. Got the point? Our senses, we get bewildered. The example of mirage I gave you. A quick example right on your screen. You look at the picture right now. What do you see? How many of you see the screen moving? You see the pictures moving right now? Yes? Those of you can see, have your cameras on, you can raise your hand. If you see this, the picture moving, the fact is, it's a static image. And that's an example of illusion. We get illusioned. Third, imperfect senses. We know of it. Our eyes are bound by certain range within which we can see. Our ears have certain ability, 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, within which we can hear. Before and beyond, we cannot hear. Like that, we have imperfect senses. Okay. Somebody may say, Prabhu, all right, we have imperfect senses, but our science will create the perfect instruments. They will capture perfect images of the sky and will give us perfect results. In this context, a Nobel Prize winning physicist by the name of Eugen Wigner points out that, yes, you may create a perfect instrument, but my dear friend, at the end of the day, you're still going to take the information through your imperfect senses. So you would never ever be able to come to a right conclusion only through your research or endeavors. That's the point here. Imperfect senses, just like when the light goes off, we cannot see our own hand. So, we have limited senses. So to depend, to rely on pratyaksha praman, when we are already afflicted by these kind of defects, how can we ever know the absolute truth? Who is very difficult to understand and comprehend. And if we attempt through our sense perception, not possible. So many things we cannot. None of us have seen the air. We feel the air. And the fourth defect that we have is the cheating propensity. Who doesn't cheat? People, to safeguard their own selfish interest. This course is based on the subject matter of Bhagavad Gita, and Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna to Arjuna at the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and everyone had assembled at the battlefield of Kurukshetra because one set of brothers cheated another set of brothers? Yes or no? Kauravas cheated Pandavas, and because of which everything happened. Who doesn't cheat? Everyone has a cheating propensity. And here we have quoted an example of pilt down man fraud. I'll not go in details too much about it, but in essence, we're going to discuss ahead about Darwin's theory. So, according to Darwin, definitely his ancestors were apes, no doubt about it. But he didn't want it to be left out, so he made everyone's ancestors to be apes. So, according to him, the scientific community said, well, if there were apes before and from apes human came, then there has to be a link up stage where there should be a semi transition between the apes and human, which means half human, half apes. So, they had been looking for such kind of evidence. And in 1912, what they call as a missing link was discovered. And they said, yes, we have found the bones and the structure, which is of a half human, half ape. And like that, this theory was turned into a scientific evidence and was taught widely and taught even up to today in all school curriculum and education. Later on, in 1953, the fraud was revealed. When the skeleton, made up skeleton, was investigated, it was found that it was not a real skeleton. It was fake skeleton. It was created to propagate this false theory, to promote atheism, and to destroy any scope of theism or the subject matter of the existence of God. That's the whole point here. So all of us have these four defects. So the Pratyaksha Praman is not that successful in receiving knowledge. Let's talk about Anuman Praman, which means maybe like this, maybe like that, or maybe this. People keep on hypothesizing. To give you a very simple example, which sums up the discussion, there was a medical conference going on. Many doctors had assembled, and there was a tea break. Doctors came out, they were having a tea, and this 4-5 doctors were standing together, orthopedic, neurologists, psychiatrists, dermatologists, and whatnot, a cardiologist. And at a distance, they saw a man limping. All the doctors began to hypothesize. Orthopedic said, oh, looks like this man has got a hairline fracture because of which he's limping. The neurologist said, oh, looks like there are some problems in his neurons or the currents because of which he's not able to walk properly. Cardiologist said, oh, looks like his blood pressure is building up. He's about to get heart attack. There's just the initial symptoms of heart attack. Like that, everyone began to hypothesize about the situation, but nobody could come to conclusion. Finally, one of the intelligent men among them said, why don't we go and ask this limping man? Why is he limping? So they went to him and they said, sir, why are you limping? And with a very surprised look, the man said, what's the big deal? My slipper got broken. Mera chappal toot gaya hai. Isliye I'm limping. That's all. And we have here big doctors hypothesizing, making their verdicts. Yes, it is like this. Because of this, the person is limping. And that's the whole point about Anuman Praman. So I'm not saying hypothesis is always wrong, but is not always correct. That's the point. Similarly with Pratyaksha Praman. Similarly, our Darwin the Great, he wrote in one of his letters, I'll read out. I am a firm believer that without speculation, which means hypothesis, there is no good and original observation. After 5 years of my fictional writing, I allowed myself to speculate on the subject. He's very clearly writing, speculate, and drew up some short notes. By his speculation, he drew some notes, which he enlarged in 1844 into a sketch of conclusions, which seemed to Darwin at that point of time could be the cause of the origin of species. And that is how he wrote the first volume of book called as Origin of Species. And the basic idea about it is taught to us even up to today. According to Darwin, how did a polar bear transform into or evolve into a whale? Would you like to know? Would anyone like to read out? Maybe our host can read out if he has the ability to unmute. Host, yes, please read out. What did Darwin say about how did a polar bear evolve into a whale?
In North America, the black bear was seen swimming for hours with wide open mouth, thus catching like a whale insects in the water. Even in so extreme a case as this, if the supply of insects were constant and if better adapted competitors did not already exist in the country, I can see no difficulty in a race of bears by natural selection, more and more aquatic in their structure and habit, with larger and larger mouth till a creature was produced as monstrous as a whale.
I
Origin of
believe it's a
species.
self-explanatory. All of you understood. He is hypothesizing conditions after conditions. The very premise of his hypothesis is there is a constant supply of mosquitoes, and you have a hungry polar bear, and he's so hungry and he's so enthusiastic to eat mosquitoes that he would not shut his mouth down. And he kept his mouth open for days and weeks and years together. And gradually, because of that posture, he turned into a monstrous animal called as whale. See, earlier I gave you a joke. This is the real joke, but taught to us as a science. That's the reason I'm laughing out. Now, what is the scientific facts about it? The record of the rocks. You know, the Darwin said the man came from monkeys, but the fossil fuel record says the man and the apes have existed not for 40,000 years, not for 100,000 years, but up to 2 million years have always existed together. There's no scientific evidence where the apes existed alone, and there is no evidence of a human like that. So man came from monkeys? No, definitely Darwin's ancestors, not mine, not yours. That's the point. Human beings and apes simultaneously existed millions of years ago. That's the whole point. It's the story of a six blind men and the elephant. I'll probably skip it. Again, it's about the subject of Anuman, where the six blind men who cannot see and they're sent to an elephant, and everyone touching the different part of the elephant is giving their verdict. The one who touches the tail says, "Oh, looks like this creature is like a rope." The one who's holding onto the feet says, "Oh, it's like a trunk of a tree." One who's putting his hand onto the body of an elephant says, "It looks like a wall." Like that, one who's holding the tusk said, "Looks like this is an arrow." So the point is, every individual was convinced about what he thought and felt to be the true definition of elephant. So my question to all of you is, how can this men, the blind men, can be enlightened about the real picture? Who can tell them, or how can they know how or what is this creature who they are touching? The only way to do so is if an intelligent person who has an eyesight and who has learned that this creature is called as elephant, when he comes in their life and tells them, "My dear friends, this is not what you call as an arrow or the rope or the wall or the trunk of a tree, etc., etc. But in fact, this is an elephant." Similarly, all of us cannot acquire perfect knowledge only on the basis of either pratyaksha or anuman. We need to hear, just like the six people can understand the truth through the process of hearing from a person who has seen the truth. So the question comes, how do we acquire knowledge? Because people don't have or don't take shelter of the right means of acquiring knowledge. Therefore, there are so many misconceptions about God. Some say God is like a light. Some say Lord somewhere stays up in the sky. Some says God means nature. Some says God is already dead. And some say we all are God. Be happy, live happily. Don't argue, debate about it. Tum bhi Bhagwan, main bhi Bhagwan, sab Bhagwan. Om Shanti Shanti. So some people come to this kind of points about it. So the four defects that checks our ability, because of which Pratyaksha and Anuman Praman fails or is unable to give us the true picture of this creation and of the Supreme Lord. First, to help you understand and remember, we have imperfect senses which leads to illusion, due to which we commit mistakes, and to hide the mistakes, one tend to cheat others. And the acronym for this is MISC. M for mistakes, I for imperfect senses, I for illusion, S for imperfect senses, and C for committing mistake. The point is, although everything for us is provided in life today, we fortunately are well educated, have every facility for our well-being, but yet people are not happy. They have the wealth which they dreamt of, which they were taught in their childhood. If you make money, you'll be happy. When they grew up, they were told if you get married, you'll be happy. When they got married, they were told if you have kids, you'll be happy. When they got kids, they were told when your kids will graduate from IIT and IIM, you'll be happy. When they graduated, then they were told when they get married, you'll be happy. And when they got married, you were told when they have grandkids, when you will have grandkids, you'll be happy. And by the time the people have grandkids, by the time they pass away from the world, always searching for happiness. And that's a harsh reality. And the reason is because, simple example, imagine we go to a gym to build our muscles and a body. We go to gym, we have no idea of how to use all the equipments there. And I go there and I start using heavy weights, start using all the machines to build up my body. You all would agree that I would cause more damage to my body than doing good, right? Because the very first thing that I need to do when I go to a gym is to find out an instructor or some facilitator or a coach who tells me how much weight I can lift, what exercise is appropriate for me. Otherwise, I would miss out the whole experience, and all the purpose of the gym is to create a healthy body for me, isn't it? To know what is the purpose of anything is a very, very important point. Similarly, imagine, for an instance, I will skip out this short video for this part of discussion, but imagine you purchase a washing machine, but you don't know what is the purpose of washing machine. And the next morning, you happen to use it as a dishwasher. You put all your unclean dishes into the washing machine. And as soon as you switch on the washing machine, gada, 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 there will be fire sparks coming out of the washing machine. The whole neighbors will be shocked. What is this making so much sound and all that? You had the right thing called as washing machine. However, you did not knew what is the purpose of it. What happened? It led to suffering. Yes or no? Similarly, with us not knowing what is the purpose of this human form of life, not knowing what is the purpose of creation, that is why people are suffering. Not because of lack of money, not because of lack of comforts, well-being, or professional security, not because of lack of loving family members, is only because of one thing: not knowing how to use things properly. What is the purpose of it? Similarly, in our life, we're not knowing what is the purpose and how we are supposed to live. Our mind always remains agitated. Like in Hindi, there is a saying, व्यक्ति मृत्यु की चिता पर एक बार बैठता है, व्यक्ति मृत्यु की चिता पे सिर्फ एक बार बैठता है, बट चिंता की चिता पर बार बार बैठता है. क्यों? Because we don't know how we are supposed to live our life. And that's the whole point here. So it's very important for us to gain this wisdom about the purpose of our existence, the purpose of creation, and also to understand who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To do so, before we get into the subject matter of who is Supreme Lord or what does Bhagwan means, prior to that, we need to address three fundamental questions, which I consider very, very important. First, who created this universe? Second, who created all the living beings? And third, who created life? Let's take a look at the first question. Who created the universe? Does anyone know what does the science says? Who created the universe? You can type into the chat box. इस दुनिया का निर्माण किसने करा है? Yes, everyone says Big Bang Theory. What is the Big Bang Theory? There was a single point which was applied with infinite temperature, infinite pressure, and a given point of time, that single point exploded, which led to this incredible, beautiful creation, including you. Is it ever possible from an explosion to have a beautiful creation? Yesterday, we saw a beautiful video about a creation, about the beings in this world. Is it ever possible? So those who believe in Big Bang Theory, I have questions to challenge them. 4 questions to counter-argue or to put forward against this Big Bang Theory, for which nobody has given an answer so far. First point is, the first question is, where did this single point came from? Isn't it? Yesterday we discussed creation means creator. Nothing happens by chance. So where did this single point came from? Second, why did it explode in some point in time? By the way, from where did time came? Isn't it? Third, who created the bang? Somebody must ignite, isn't it? And what was its purpose? Because there is nothing that exists beyond purpose. And the fourth, if it exploded into an empty space, where did that space come from? Isn't it? Space must have been existing before. So from where did that space came from? So we can continue arguing about this theory, but Lord Shri Krishna, in a very simple way, puts it out in Bhagavad Gita about who created this universe. Krishna says, Pitahamasya jagato mata dhata pitamaha vedyam pavitram omkara raksama yajare vacha. In 9th chapter, 17th verse, Krishna says, Hey Arjuna, I am the father of this universe. Pitaham, Pita aham, I, Pita, asya jagato, of this jagat, Mata dhata pitama. I am the mother, I am the maintainer and proprietor of this whole universe. So who is the cause of that space? Who ignited that Big Bang? If that's what the reality scientists believe, that is Krishna. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Let's go to the second question here now. Who created all the living beings? Isn't it? So what is the scientific theory about who created all living beings? How did different species manifest it? Right? That's the question here. How did humans manifest it? How did whales manifest it? What is the idea about it? How did different species have come into existence in this creation? Anyone knows? Well, I see somebody typing Adam and Eve. Well, that's a scientific, or that's a Christian theory, which is a story which comes in Christian theology. Well, the answer is Darwin. Darwin writes in his Darwin theory, how did different species existed? And he talks about transformation of one species to another. And that's how he says what he called as an evolution theory. The scientific term is evolution theory. So the question to the followers of Darwin theory is, how did new species are produced? You just saw an example of how whales were produced from polar bear, I mean, which was a joke in itself. Where he said the apes transformed into humans. And we already saw, well, apes and humans have always existed together. And even if that's the case, then why are apes existing together today? Why not all the apes in front of our eyes? Why not we have any living case getting transformed into humans, isn't it? Second, how does one species transforms into another is only hypothesis, speculations, and assumptions, no scientific evidence. In other words, this Darwin theory offers a fairy tale story to give reasons for the above questions. Therefore, many scientists discard this Darwin's theory of evolution. I'm just quoting one professor by the name of Stephen M. Stanley from the University of Hawaii. And he says, fossil records show that all species of life have always existed together. And second point, he counter-argue, there has been no link between one species to another species ever found, which in itself debunks the Darwin's theory of evolution. But what does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita about how did different living species came into existence? Krishna says, Sarvayonishu Kanteya Murtaya Sammavantiya Tasham Brahma Mahadayone Aham Bija Prathapitaha. This is from 14th chapter 4th verse. Krishna says, Aham Bija Prathapita. I am the seed-giving father of all the living entities. According to scriptures, there are 8.4 million species, which we'll be discussing about more in the fifth topic about the subject matter of different species. Krishna says, I am the seed-giving father. So if Darwin's theory of evolution seems to be a scientific fact, then it should be proven by the scientific method of observation. In this verse, it is clearly explained that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the original father of all living entities. I leave on to you to decide who you would put more faith in, an unknown person by the name of Darwin, who you don't know anything about his personal life, character, integrity, or about Krishna, on whose words you want to put faith, is your decision. At least we have chosen to put faith in what Krishna says. Let's come to the third question. Who created life? Anyone knows? What does the scientific community speaks about? How did life manifested? We talked about how did creation came. We spoke about how did different species came. Now the question is, how did life originated? The life must have originated at some point of time itself, right? Any idea? What's the theory behind it? And the theory is called as chance theory, promoted by Richard Dawkins. Richard Dawkins says that randomly some chemicals mixed to form a single cell life form, and it all happened accidentally. This is his exact words in an article or a research paper that he published by the name of Selfish Gene, 1976. And he writes further, again by chance they organize themselves into complex beings like humans. Rather, in the introduction of his book, he says that this book that I'm publishing on the evolution, not evolution, publishing on the origin of life should be read as a science fiction. These are his words. And today it's been taught to students as a scientific evidence. Now, think about it. If that's the case, the life came from chemicals. Why don't we mix chemicals in a lab and produce life? Or why don't we bring a dead back to life through the mixing or addition of chemicals? Now, who created the genetic code, RNA and DNA? They're said to be the most complex codes. You use an Android smartphone, the apps, there are programmers who create those applications, isn't it? This genetic code, RNA, DNA, which forms the building block of your whole existence, have everything written down within it right at the time of your birth, which defines for how long would you live, what kind of body and everything you would have. That coding is given into this RNA and DNA. And because of which such a complex human being is created. So my question to all of you is, if a simple mobile app, PowerPoint, Zoom, we know that there are programmers, then how can you just believe that this is such a, or rather the most complex programming that have given birth to the most complex and intelligent human being could have happened on its own, isn't it? Chance theory just doesn't make sense. Where did this code came? What is the source of living cell? And then, of course, who created emotions, intelligence, and consciousness? So Lord Shri Krishna puts his answer to this question in a very concise way in one verse in Bhagavad Gita, where the question is, who created life? Krishna says, Mamaivam sujiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana manashashprani indriyani prakriti sthani karshati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind also. In essence, it is reasonable to accept an intelligent creator for being the cause of the code, which means RNA and DNA, of the living cell, than to assume that they existed on its own. So now the question arises, what does God means? What is the definition of God? And what is the definition of God? Simple. He is the supreme CEO. Every organization have a CEO, right? So shouldn't this universe have a CEO? And that CEO is called as God, which means C for controller, E for enjoyer, and O for owner. Everyone in this world is aspiring to be the enjoyer. But Krishna, or the Supreme Lord, is said to be supreme enjoyer, supreme owner, supreme controller, and supreme, not the supreme, but the cause of all causes. To give an example, if you want to enjoy something, then you have to be owner of something, right? You need to have it. For example, let's say you want to have a good time and sitting in a Mercedes Benz. So you should have Mercedes Benz with you. Now, not only having helps you to enjoy, you should have the ability to control the vehicle. Imagine you're sitting on the driver's seat, but you don't know what is the accelerator, what is the brake. Your journey is not going to be blissful. That's the point. And then, who could be the supreme controller? That's the point is only one who is the cause of all causes. So one who is cause of all causes, is a supreme controller, is a supreme owner, therefore is said to be supreme in joy, and that person is Supreme Lord. So here Krishna tells to Arjuna, hey Arjuna, this is very classic verse from the 4th chapter, 42 verse, where Krishna says to Arjuna, Tasmad ajnana sambhutam hristam jnanasinatmanah chitvainam samshayam yogam atisht uttishta bharata. Hey Arjuna, with the weapon of knowledge, rise up. And with this weapon of transcendental knowledge, chapter 4 is titled as Transcendental Knowledge, destroy this ignorance. And that is the whole point. That is the whole subject matter of the importance of understanding and learning about spiritual subject matter. But yet, the fundamental question remains, how do I gain perfect knowledge about God? Why are you keeping a suspense? Why don't you just spit it out? From the beginning, very first slide, we started our session with this, how to get perfect knowledge about God. And now, after running a whole circle, we came back to the same question. So let's keep the suspense for some more time. Let me ask to all of you, how can a child know who is his father? Well, there is something called as inductive knowledge, which means through research, a person through some genetic fingerprinting and all that, it is said you can find out about your father. But the point is, it takes huge amount of time. That is inductive through research. Another method of knowing who is my father is called as deductive, which means to receive, which means just go and ask your mother, Mama, who is my father? Probably you will, hopefully you will not get a slap from your mother, but she'll tell you who your father is. That's a point. Ask the right authority and you get an answer. And that is what is called as Shabda Praman, evidence through hearing. Hearing from bona fide authority can give us the right knowledge. That is the reason Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, hey Arjuna, you want to know what is transcendental knowledge? Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya uptekshanti te jnanam jnanina sattvadarshinaha. Take shelter of a bona fide guru. He will enlighten you. He'll help you understand the subject matter. So this ISKCON organization, the founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, comes in Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Parampara. Lord Shri Krishna instructed this wisdom to Brahma. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavya. And Brahma in return instructed to his son Narada. Narada instructed to Vyasa. Vyasa instructed to Sukha. Sukadeva Goswami instructed to Parikshit Maharaj. And in that assembly there was Suta Goswami, who further instructed 88,000 sages assembled at Naimisharanya. And like that, in the parampara, in the disciplic chain, this knowledge have continued down the line, and we all received it through the means of Srila Prabhupada, who is an Acharya in Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Parampara. That's the reason when Srila Prabhupada wrote his Bhagavad Gita, he titled it as Bhagavad Gita as it is, which means nothing minus, nothing addition. Whatever Krishna wanted to speak to Arjuna, the whole idea is presented like that. So, question arises, where a person may wonder, how do we know if authority is genuine and is above the 4 defects? You all remember 4 defects? Yes? The MISC acronym? Well, there is a simple test of an authority. It's a 3-step formula. And what is the test of an authority? First, opinion never changes. Second, has stood the test of time. It's not what was said 5,000 years ago, does not hold true today. It has stood the test of time. Opinion does not changes, and it has never ever been proven wrong. That is a test of an authority. So what is such an authority? That authority is Vedic scriptures. Vedic scriptures acts like mata, acts like mother. When a person opens a copy of Bhagavad Gita and he studies Bhagavad Gita, then he understands about his father, Pita. So Vedic scriptures instruct us who is our eternal father. And that is what the point here. By approaching Vedic scriptures, we understand our father. Not by researching, we understand our father, which means eternal father. Our second question arises, how do we gain perfect knowledge? Because our senses are still imperfect, correct? That's a valid question. But the point is, when you put an iron rod into a fire, after a while, the iron rod becomes as hot as iron. Yes or no? Similarly, when we allow ourselves to be exposed to the association of saintly people, or the devotees of the Lord, or the students, or the teachers, or the followers of Bhagavad Gita, gradually we also become purified. Next, should I not approach God directly? That could be a question in the heart and the mind of many. Why do I need to approach Guru? Why don't I approach God directly? Well, correct, you can try to do so. You can try to pray to Krishna, my dear Lord, because you instructed Arjuna directly. I am also as great as Arjuna, and I want your personal attention. I want you to walk down the altar right now. Come in front of me, we'll have a chat. Then we'll discuss, you're God, I am God, who is God? We'll have a debate on the subject matter. Well, matter of fact is, you already follow a parampara system in your education system also. For example, Isaac Newton spoke about some scientific theories and evidences, and you're taught about it today in your school. You don't say your teacher, well, I'm not going to believe in the law of gravity unless Newton comes himself. जब तक ये एड़ा आएगा नहीं ना, मैं समझूंगा नहीं. Until this Newton comes and tells me what is the law of gravity, I'm not going to put faith. None of us say like that, isn't it? So why do we act so childishly when it comes to subject matter of God? That's the whole point. Krishna himself says we can understand about him through the means of parampara and the parampara system which are created, established by him. And there are four bona fide paramparas. One is started through Brahma, called as Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Parampara. Second, started through or initiated by Shri, which is called as through Lakshmi, and that is called as Shri Samprada. Third is initiated by four Kumaras, the first sons of Brahma, which is called as Kumar Samprada. And the fourth Samprada is Rudra Samprada, where Lord instructed Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva then further instructed his students, and then the parampara continued, and that is called as Rudra Samprada. Like that, there are four Sampradas, and if we connect to any, then we can get the perfect knowledge. Just like you have authorized agencies by the government who certify that IIT is the best college, and who certify the medical institutions to be best. They give out rankings because they are acknowledged by the government. They have values, isn't it? Every college and university and schools have accreditation system. UGC, university grants commissions are there to accredit colleges. Similarly, unless Lord himself acknowledges somebody to be a bona fide teacher, that person cannot be taken seriously. And how do we know he's a bona fide teacher? Must be coming in either of these four paramparas. With that, we come to the conclusion of our subject matter for today, where we discuss the following things. The very first thing today we discussed about the three ways of acquiring knowledge. Pratyaksha, Anuman, Shabda. What are the four defects every living entity has? God is beyond sense perception, therefore, only Shabda Praman. Through Shabda Praman, we can understand about the oldest of all. And we also discuss about three fundamental questions. Who created this creation? How life manifested? And how did different living species came into existence? And the last subject matter that we discussed was the definition of God. And the essence of this whole subject matter was, if you want to understand, if you want to worship, you want to develop a relationship with the Lord, we have to acquire knowledge from bona fide sources. There is no other alternative to it. I'll conclude our today's discussion with one example on this subject matter. There was a young boy whose birthday was right on the corner, which means a week later was his birthday. But this boy was a very naughty boy. He ran to his mother and said, "My dear mother, a week later is my birthday. Every year you give me a gift. So what gift are you giving me this week or this year?" Before the mother could respond, the son said, "Mother, I know you always want to please me. So therefore, let me tell you what I want. So you give me what I want. So that pleases you the most." So mother began to laugh. Mother said, "Beta, you are getting thenga. I am not getting you any gift this year. Why? Because you had been such a naughty boy." The boy began to cry, "Mama, don't do like this. I want a bicycle." No. So mother said, "Well, if you want your desire to be fulfilled, our ancestors have told us that we should go and make a prayer to Lord. If you're genuine, then Lord will definitely fulfill your prayer. The boy went into his room, take out a pen and paper. Mother had told him to write a letter to Krishna, and began to write a letter. My dear Krishna, this is your Ronnie, your eternal servant, always available at your service. I had been a brilliant boy, very sober and decent boy all through the year, and next week is my birthday. So I request you to please get me a bike, red color, geared, Hercules brand bicycle. All right? Your dear friend Rani. After a few minutes, the boy realized, "Arey, jhoot bola main to. Everything is a lie." He tore open the letter and then he began to write the second letter. He said, "My dear Lord, your eternal servant Ronnie," and so forth. "I had been a good boy. Please provide me a red color geared bike of any brand of your choice. I don't mind. Your friend, your servant, Ronnie." After a while, he again realized, "Oh, this is a joke. I'm lying to Lord. Lord knows everything." So he tore the second letter. Now he writes a third letter. "My dear Lord, I had been an okay boy. Get me any bike of red color, geared, gearless, of any brand will work with me. No problem. You pick your choice. Your servant, Ronnie." After a few minutes, he realized, "Oh my goodness, I'm a big liar. Krishna knows everything." Now he writes the fourth letter. "My dear Lord, I'm extremely sorry. I confess I had been a very naughty boy. Please give me any bicycle of your color of choice, your brand, gear or without gear, I'll accept it. Signed, Ronnie." 1 minute passed, 2 minutes passed, 3 minutes passed, 4 minutes, 5, 10 minutes passed. Nothing happened. Ronnie got very angry. "I had been cheated. Nothing happened. My mother promised if I express myself genuinely to the Lord, Lord will fulfill my desire. Where is my bicycle? This is unfair." He became very angry. He came down running to the kitchen. He said to his mother, "Mother, I'm just going out to the nearby temple. We'll be back in 5 minutes." Mother's thought, maybe my boy had got transformed. Mother said, "Yes, beta, go to temple." The boy went running to the temple and he went straight to the altar. He looked to the left, to the right. Hopefully nobody is seeing him. And suddenly he picked up something from the altar, put it underneath his jacket, came running to the house, went up into his room, and now he took out a pen and paper. And this time he's writing the fifth letter. And the boy says, "Listen, Krishna, I have kidnapped your girlfriend Radharani. If you ever want to see her alive, send me a red color geared Hercules brand bike. This is the last warning to you, Ronnie." Now, what has happened in this story is an interesting story. It's a story of our own life where our faith keeps on changing because of lack of knowledge. That's the whole point. When the things are going all well with us, we think, yes, yes, God exists. When the life becomes difficult, we begin to doubt the Supreme Lord. We would rather we come to a situation where we begin to blame the Lord for all the bad things that are happening in our life. And like that, people go through the faith transition. And it is all because of lack of knowledge. Here, the faith is called as sentimental. If things are good, accept it. If things are bad, blame the Lord. So that's the whole idea, and that's the whole importance of understanding Bhagavad Gita, transcendental knowledge. And that is what we are trying to discuss through this Gita Rahasyam or the Gita Wisdom program. So with this, we come to the conclusion. We have few minutes available. We'll have question answers. And tomorrow we meet again for a second topic, a very exciting topic titled as Are Vedas Mythology? We'll discuss at length about it. We'll speak a little bit of history of how and why Vedas were tagged as mythology. We'll keep it as a suspense for you until tomorrow. With that, we sincerely thank you for joining us for today evening and attending this program. And if you have any questions, you can definitely write to us. And I do acknowledge our website is yet not fully functional. Everything is there for the registered members. Maybe today or tomorrow, you'll be getting the message about how you can access your student portal, wherein you will have your quizzes, recorded lectures, the presentations for you to refer, everything. And any time of your convenience, you can log into the system and you will have all the resources available. So with that, thank you so much for joining us. Hare Krishna, I will request our host, Shikhar Prabhu, before we get into any question answers, if he has any announcements, he may make announcements and then we'll open the forum for question answer.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you so much for wonderful explaining why Shabda Praman is only the authority, which we should look forward. Mm, Almost to cover every point, there's one important announcement which is exclusive for the registered users. So as you mentioned, we are preparing a student portal which will not only provide the recorded access of all your lectures of this session, but it will also have some interesting quizzes coming up, and then course content, PPTs, and finally the certificate. Now, this would only be for the registered users, and non-registered user will still able to access through YouTube, but they will not have the access of recorded session or the content or the courses, right? So we request registration are still open. If anybody wants to register, please register on our website. All details are there. And if you have any questions about registration process or the course or material or the login, we are anyways going to send a short video by tonight or tomorrow morning positively. But you can anyways reach out to our host or the admin of the respective groups, WhatsApp groups on which you are enrolled. Now, there's some differences which we kept during registration, non-register, because we want to track each and every individual spiritual progress, and this would also help in you because there this Gita Rahasya and then Gita Essence and the Gita Life. It's divided into all three courses, which is a detailed course study of entire Bhagavad Gita. So this is first level. Then second level would be Gita Essence, which is one day for each chapter, and then there's also a plan of Gita Life, which would be continue discussing Gita in detail. So we just want that if you have any question, please do let us know, and probably we'll reach out to you as soon as possible. Anything you would like to add, Prabhuji?
Just one thing, that Gita wisdom and Gita essence we are covering in this month of Gita Jayanti. However, the Gita Life, which is a detailed study of Bhagavad Gita, will begin from January onwards. However, only the audience who have covered the first two subject matters and have been certified, which means have got certifications for Gita Wisdom and Gita Essence, would be allowed for the detailed study of Gita Life. And that's the whole purpose of creating the student portal and the website. So you may take advantage of it. The quizzes for these sessions are topic wise. So today, first topic concludes, and the quiz is already uploaded. However, there is a little communication error between the student portal and the content which is uploaded, which our developer is trying to fix and should get fixed maybe today or tomorrow. You'll get the access to it. And I believe this whole recorded sections and all that are accessible to everyone right now. But once the website begins to function normally, then the recorded lectures would only be available through the student portal, not through the YouTube channel. Hare Krishna. We can go back to any questions if there are any. If anyone wants to
Yeah.
speak up, they can be allowed to unmute also, so we can have some interaction that way.
Okay, Prabhuji. So we'll have couple of questions coming up from Zoom. The first one is from Pooja Mataji. She's asking, how do we know who are genuine gurus in the Sampradaya?
Well, how do we know genuine gurus in Sampradaya? I mean, of course, it's not something you see a person with a bright light around his face as a genuine guru. To understand a person, you need to spend some time with the person. You know, to see does he walks the talk or does he only speak about Krishna conscious or spiritual life? Does he even practices what he teaches? So there are qualities and attributes elaborated in Bhagavad Gita also, as well as other texts like Srimad Bhagavatam and others, which talks about the qualities. To give an example, you're talking about a genuine guru. Srila Rupa Goswami gives 6 symptoms for it. He says, Vacho vegam manasakrodha vegam, jivva vegam udarupashta vegam, etan vegam yovishaheta sarvam api pratham shishyad, which means Vacho vegam, one who has learned to control the urges of his tongue. Vacho vegam, manasakrodha, the urges of the mind, urges of the, anger, who has learned to control his anger. Vacho vegam manasa krodha vegam jivvaha. Vacha refers to speech, who has controlled his speech, who has controlled his mind. Vacho vegam manasa krodha. Jiva, who has controlled the urges of the tongue, which always keeps hankering for eating palatable items. And then Vachavega Manasa Krodha Jiva Udhar Upashta. Udhar refers to belly, the demands of the belly to keep on eating and consuming more and more. And finally, of the genitals, which means the sex life. The one who has gained control on these six, attributes of human life, I would say the urges of a human life, one who has gained victory over these urges, Rupa Goswami, the scripture says, is qualified to make disciples. So you cannot find out about this thing by just meeting him once or twice or seeing him or listening from him. That's the reason the culture is by being with the Guru, experiencing, observing him, and then one understands, is he really practicing what scripture teaches? And that's how we can understand who is genuine within the genuine paramparas. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. There's one from Stuti Mataji. She is asking, under which parampara does Adi Shankaracharya come under?
Well, Adi Shankaracharya does not come under any parampara. Adi Shankaracharya, his philosophy was of Mayavad, where he kind of abolished the idea of the personal form of the Lord. So, he represented an alternate understanding of scriptures where he kind of promoted the concept of Aham Brahmasmi, where it means you are Brahman, I am Brahman, we all are supreme. And at the end of life, we all merge into the Supreme Brahman and we become the Supreme Brahman, which means we become one with the God and we also become God. So he had misrepresented the idea, the subject matter of the scriptures. He does not belong to any of the paramparas that we discussed, which were initiated by the Lord himself. Of course, we do have a Shankara parampara coming up to today. Of course, Shankaracharya must be given credits because he did some tremendous services for the mankind. He did a great service by establishing faith in Vedic scriptures again, because prior to him, Buddha had appeared and Buddha had abolished Vedic scriptures, but Shankaracharya brought back faith in Vedic scriptures. And there is a whole internal reasons why Adi Shankaracharya did not explicitly glorified Lord Shri Krishna. Although, he wrote verses called as Gita Mahatmya, describing the glories of Bhagavad Gita and also he wrote prayers in glorification of Lord Shri Krishna. So that's a different subject matter, but yet Adi Shankaracharya established a lot of temples all over India. Whatever ancient temples today we know of, from even the four dham that we have, from Badrinath, Kedarnath to Dwarka, to Jagannath Puri to Rameshwaram, you'll see the footprints of Adi Shankaracharya everywhere. He walked every nook and corner and restored the Vedic culture at his time. So all glories for him for that. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. There's one question. I cannot read name. It's in Telugu.
Shikhar Prabhu, can we just request? I generally like to see who we are talking to, who is the audience. I've also joined the meeting. If our audience can switch on their camera, at least that helps me to know who I'm speaking to. So you can maybe request. It's up to them if they want to or not, but it's nice to know who we are addressing.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Prabhuji, want to go ahead with the question?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So there's one question he is asking, in Grihastha Dharma life, shall we choose a proper guru? He's explaining it more. Like, is it possible to choose a guru in a common man life?
Is it possible to find a guru or choose a guru for a common man?
Common man who is Grihastha.
Oh yeah. Oh, Arjuna was an uncommon man. He was also a grihastha, isn't it? Arjuna had Krishna as his guru. So the bhakti marg is open for all. It doesn't matter which ashram you belong to. The principles are very simple. Be at whichever place you are. What is the whole message of Bhagavad Gita? Krishna tells Arjuna, perform your duty. You don't have to leave your ashram, grahastha ashram, take a renunciation, which Arjuna wanted to do. And Krishna again and again tells him, no, you should not do it. You should continue performing your duty according to guna and karma and become a good grahastha, set an example, and become a perfect human being by practicing spiritual life. So everyone can accept and receive the mercy of Guru, but it has to begin with some forum. There has to be some connection with some forum where we study about the spiritual subject matter and then Guru. Hare Krishna, we can continue. Is there somebody? We can call them
Yes.
inside. Yes, please.
If there's any other question, devotees can ask now. If not, then we can conclude for today.
All right.
I think we can conclude, Prabhuji.
I see one question by Lakshmi. Why is Gita not taught in schools? Is that what are you asking, Lakshmi? Okay. Can we get Mahabharat lectures also? Oh, our Jagannath is asking that. Mahabharat lectures are available on Evolve Pune YouTube playlist. You can always go there and you can access that. Our Jagannath ji is asking about why Bhagavad Gita is not taught in schools. Well, that is beyond our control, but you can attend Bhagavad Gita classes that we are giving. We open a dedicated website now for that purpose, so don't worry. You are in a school, you are a retired army man, whoever you are, you can always log into the website and listen to the recorded lectures. Okay. Anyways, Gita Life, the whole 2-year detailed Bhagavad Gita program is already up there on the Evolve Pune YouTube channel for anyone to access, those who are interested. Hare Krishna. So I guess that's it for today. Thank you all for joining in, spending your time. Because this is an everyday session, we meet tomorrow again. It's not a weekend program, okay? Don't disappear for next 5 days. Come back on next Saturday. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Thank you
Hare
for
Krishna.
joining.